同学大家好，我们继续讲那个圣经的Exodus 啊。那么上一个视频啊，有一个地方我要纠正一下啊，一个错误啊，我当时没在意啊，我后来好像听了一听我的视频啊，这个 on account of 啊，我当时就有点觉得，因为我没查，on account of their taskmasters 啊，这个 on account of 就是 because 啊，because of 啊。I have heard their cry because of their taskmasters 啊，由于啊他们的那个 taskmaster 他们就抱怨了啊，这个我要更正一下啊。那么我那查了一下，sorry，我查了一下 on account of，这是应该是一个成语啊，同学们sorry，在这里 on account of 就是 for the sake of 啊，because of 啊，那么这个呢大家注意一下啊。好，那么我们接下去讲这个啊，16开始啊，这一段啊，16，16很长的，同学们，16就是上帝要跟他说了，这上帝说，Go and assemble the elders of Israel, and say to them, The Lord, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, has appeared to me, saying, I have given heed to you and to what has been done to you in Egypt. In Egypt, I declare that I will bring you up out of the misery of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, blah, 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 a land flowing with milk and honey. They will listen to your voice, and you and the elders of Israel shall go to the king of Egypt and say to him, The Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. Let us now go a 3 days journey into the wilderness, so that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. I know, however, that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless compelled by a mighty hand. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all my wonders that I will perform in it. After that, he will let you go. I will bring this people into such favor with the Egyptians, this people into such favor with the Egyptians that when you go, you will not go empty-handed. Each woman shall ask her neighbor, and any woman living in the neighbor's house for jewelry of silver and of gold and clothing, and you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, and so you shall plunder the Egyptians. 这个地方有问题了。Anyway， 我们得看下去，这一段非常的有意思啊。这个上帝的说的这个东西啊，有问题啊，有问题啊。那么好，那么我们来看啊。Go and assemble the elders of Israel and say to them, The Lord, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham and Isaac has appeared to me, saying, I have given heed to you and to what have been done to you in Egypt。 好，那么这个16啊，我们来看一下为什么他说是 elder， 这里的 elder 是指什么？年长的，年长的，有那个的。那么这个是16啊，为什么他这里要说 elders 啊？Go and gather the elders of together to say to them, Lord, I will saying, I have observed you and what has been done to Egypt 啊。那么 Go assemble the elders of 那个啊，那么 Go and gather the elders。那么这个我们看看这个翻译。Now go and call together all the elders of Israel. Tell them, Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of He appeared to me. He told me, I have been watching closely, and I see how the Egyptians are treating you. 好，那么我们看看为什么他说是 elders 啊？这个里面有一点讲究。God is speaking to the out of the miracle of 这个是重复了我们啊 ，Lord, take preparation using the small capital in Lord, and sometimes it displays Yahweh. Moses is commissioned with 3 commands in this verse. First, he must return to Egypt to fulfill this mission. Second, Moses was to gather the elders of Israel. This is the first mention of these elders who apparently began serving as the leaders of the Jewish people during their slavery 长老这些这个 elder 在这里这个圣经里面第一次提到elders of Israel. This governing body 它是一个 governing body is mentioned 31 times in the Old Testament including 8 times in Exodus and 14 times total in Torah. 那么大家知道了，这个 elders 就是他们的领，他们的长老以色列的长老elders 他们是头好，然后是 third, Moses to give these elders a specific message. In this verse, part of the message is given. The God of Abraham had appeared to Moses to reassure Israel that he has seen their afflictions in Egypt. This was to serve as a reminder. God had not forgotten nor forsaken them. The next verse will continue with God's promise regarding freedom from slavery 那么这个长老就是这个意思。好，那么 go the Lord of the go and I have given heed to you 那么我们看一下 I declare that I will bring you up out of the misery to the land of Canaanites, the blah 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 blah. A land following with milk and honey. 这个是17是重复的，我们不用解释了那么18 They will listen to your voice. 这个才是那个长老They will listen to it. And you and the elders of Israel shall go to the king of Egypt and say to him, The Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. Let us now go a 3 days journey into the wilderness so that we may sacrifice so that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God 那么这个也不用说了，这个18不用解释，因为他说那些长老会听你的，然后呢，你和那些长老呢就到那个国王那边去然后对国王说这上帝我们的这个希伯来的上帝已经跟我们见面了，然后呢，让我们现在呢就要去一个3天的一个旅程到那个野外去那个就是那个 Sinai Mountain of God 那个地方 ，so that 这样的话我们可以 sacrifice 祭祀we may sacrifice to the Lord our God 那么后面19I know 那个。因为这个好像那个高的继续说I know, however, that the king of and said to him, I know, however, that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless compelled by a mighty hand 那么这个 B 有一个 Hebrew no, not by no, not by a mighty hand 那这个sorry 那么这个19我们要看一下19 But I know that the king of you will not let you go unless compelled by a mighty hand 这个一样的But the king of you unless a mighty hand compels him 强迫他一个重手But I know the king of Egypt will not permit you to go except under compulsion 那么这个，那么我们这个看 But I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless a mighty hand forces him 那同学们，这个就易懂这强迫他有一个强烈的那个强迫他。那么 after commanding the Moses to confront Pharaoh, God warns him that Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, will not be receptive. Pharaoh is also often called king of Egypt in the Exodus, or Pharaoh king of Egypt. According to God, the only way Pharaoh will agree to even the slightest release for Israel is if compelled by a mighty hand. Moses will later refer to God as the one who brought the people from Egypt with a mighty hand. The mighty hand of God is also mentioned 9 times in Deuteronomy, and 7 times total in Bible. Mighty hand, 这个意思是提的。This mighty hand of God will include 10 plagues. 那么这个它这个 mighty hand 强有力的一只手它是什么？包括什么？10个那个灾难 ，culminating in the death of the firstborn sons of Egypt. Verse 20 predicts that after the Pharaoh will let you go, Further, further, the upcoming passage will conclude with the prediction that the Jews will plunder 引号这里一个引号 plunder the Egyptians through the items that their request. This prediction will be fulfilled in the Exodus, as the fleeing Jews will be given jewelry and clothes by the Egyptians. 那么好，那么这个就是那么这里啊，就是解释他这个 Almighty Hand，他上帝知道啊 ，I know 我来Mighty Hand 啊，那么然后20啊。So I will stretch out my hand and struck Egypt with all my wonders that I will perform in it. After that, he will let you go. 那么20，我们看一下20，我们就看这个啊。So I will raise my hand and struck the Egyptians, performing all kinds of miracles among them. Then at last he will let you go. 那么好。我们看看这里 God has just delivered a message to Moses, which is to be given to the elders of part of the message is a command to confront the Pharaoh and request a 3-day leave for the Hebrews to worship God. This request, 那这只不过是一个请求啊。This request 啊，这他们请求啊，给他们3天时间去祭祀那个祭祀那个 worship 那个 God 啊。This says God will be refused 啊。这个请求啊。那个法老会拒绝 ，since Egypt will never relax its grip on their slaves without coercion 啊，然后是 in response 啊 ，and to free Israel, God said He will stretch out His hand against the nation. This was a common way for Moses to describe God's judgment 啊。This phrase is used often in the Old Testament, even outside the books of Moses 啊。And the idea of striking in judgment also 就是说他的那个审判啊，就是进攻击了，上帝的攻击啊 ，striking in judgment also recurs in Egypt. God strikes the Nile. God 就是 strikes the Nile to turn it to blood 啊 ，God 呢让那个尼罗河水啊变成血啊，那他就是那个 strike 了。He instructs Aaron 啊。To strike the dust, to send the gnats into the land of Egypt. 那么 strike the dust, to send the gnats. 然后后面他还有啊，他叫那个 Aaron 去 strike 啊。God also strikes the firstborn sons and animals in the 10th and 啊，那么 God 的 strike 有很多啊。好，然后。God refers to his upcoming plagues as wonders 啊，那上帝是指那个 wonder 啊，奇迹啊，他指的那个他要给那个埃及人的灾难，就把它称为是 wonders 啊。He later mentions signs and wonders in Exodus 7. God talks about his wonders being multiplied in and Exodus talks about Moses and Aaron performing wonders before Pharaoh. In Exodus, Moses and the people praise God for his wonders. Moses again returns to the theme of wonders in Deuteronomy, mentioned God's many wonders on 6 occasions. These wonders would continue in the life of Israel in Joshua's time, and God's many wonders would be praised throughout the scripture. 那这里的 wonder 就是那个上帝要 striking 啊，灾难啊，这个 wonder 是 plagues 啊，那么好，那么这种讲法，圣经里面这种讲法是写法，这种圣经啊，有那么一点问题的，因为你上帝给别人带来灾难啊，当然这种灾难是他们自讨的，对不对？但是你不能说它是 wonder， 那你这个。你这个 wonder 这个东西，一般 wonder 这个是褒义词啊，我们理解这个 wonder 都是褒义词啊，而不是什么灾难，灾难不能称作为 wonder 的啊。那么，但是呢，这圣经就这么说的，上帝也是这么认为的啊。那么这个我就不深讨论了啊。这个是关于宗教的东西啊，非常的有争议的啊。大家知道有 as in the Gospel of John, the purpose of these miracles is to prove God's message and his messenger. 啊 true 啊。那么那么所有的这些啊，这些那个奇迹啊，所谓的 wonder 啊，这个目的啊，目的就是要证明那个上帝的那个 message 啊，上帝给你一个 message 啊，这让你不要开玩笑啊，你跟上帝开玩笑。啊，那就给你一个 message 啊，and his message 啊 true and 啊，然后他的 message 是 true 啊，这么真的啊，上帝就是给你一个这上帝来真的啊，不是开玩笑啊，跟你啊，那么上帝是厉害的啊。好，那么我们看20啊，So I stretch out my hand and struggle with the wonders that were performed after that. So I will strengthen performing all kinds of miracles. Then at last he will let you 啊。那么我们看，after that he will let you go. 那么21啊，I will bring this people into such favor with the Egyptians, such favor with the Egyptians that when you go 啊，you will not go empty-handed 啊。那么他呢，就是要让埃及人啊，bring these people，these people 是以色列人啊。跟着让那个让埃及人喜欢他们啊，所以他们走的时候不会空手而走啊。那么21也是很有意思，我们看一下为什么是 such favor 啊？I will make Egyptians favorably disposed towards these people 啊。那他上帝因为以色列人现在那个埃及人把他当成奴隶啊，但是呢，上帝要把这个情况要改变，他让以色列人喜欢啊，埃及人喜欢那个以色列啊。I will cause the Egyptians to look favorably on you. 看到没有 ？I will cause the Egyptians to look favorably on you. They will give you gifts when you go, so you will not leave empty-handed. 啊，那这个就是那个啊。After giving the message for the prediction that Pharaoh will 就是 God gives some prediction 啊，那么。什么 prediction 啊 ？God promises the Jews would have a favor among the Egyptians 啊，埃及人会喜欢他嘛？Even as they leave a even as they leave a ruined and scarred nation behind 啊，同学们，这个就是即便啊，那个以色列人啊，把那个埃及都毁掉了，那个埃及人还要喜欢他们哈。The fulfillment of this prophecy is found in the Exodus 32. And the Lord had given the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. 啊，那么啊，following the death of the firstborn sons and animals of Egypt and the other catastrophic plagues caused by their enslavement of the Hebrews, the Egyptians will give the Jews whatever they want.And urge them to leave immediately 啊，那就啊，他们吓坏了，这你们快走，你们要什么就有什么啊。Exodus further expand the Jews will leave Egypt with much plunder 啊，更多的那个。Exodus specifically notes the fulfillment of this prediction involving silver and gold jewelry and clothing, similar to a winning.Nation in war 就像那个打仗打赢了呀。This would serve as the equivalent of this would serve as the equivalent of plundering the Egyptians. The Jews would not leave destitute, but rather in victory over those who had oppressed 啊。那 Jews 啊，他们离开的时候啊，不会是很悲惨的啊。will not leave destitute 啊 ，destitute 就是很悲惨啊。But rather 相对来就是胜利啊，他们 in victory over those who 啊，那就是。那么就是这个意思啊。那么好，我们21啊 ，I will bring these people into such a favor with the that when you go, I will 啊。那么 each woman 后面来了 shall ask her neighbor.And any woman living in the neighbor's house, each woman shall ask her neighbor, and any woman living in the neighbor's house, and any woman ask her neighbor and any for jewelry and silver of gold and clothing, and you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters. Each woman ought to ask her neighbor and any woman living for jewelry.And so you shall plunder the Egyptian 啊，22啊，这个22也很关键。这个 each woman 是指每一个以色列的妇女啊，应该是啊。 22. But each woman shall ask of her neighbors and any woman who lives in their house for silver and gold jewelry and for clothing. You shall put them. 好，然后 every woman is ask her neighbor and any living in that house articles of blah blah blah. But every woman shall ask the neighbor. Each woman will ask the. 那么这个同学们这个同学们，这个 NLT 真是好啊！他考虑到了，你看到没有？我想到的问题，前面的几个版本都没有考虑到。Every Israelite woman 每一个以色列的妇女will ask for articles of silver and gold and fine clothing from her Egyptian neighbors and from the foreign women in their houses 以及他们那些他们的那个家里面也有奴隶什么乱七八糟的，就 foreign women you will dress your sons and daughters with these stripping the Egyptians of their wealth 那么好，把他们的那个财富都剥夺了那么好，我们看 each woman shall ask her neighbors and any woman in the neighbor house 那后面就是说看到没有 ？ask her neighbor 他邻居，这个邻居呢是埃及人，然后呢是 any woman living in the neighbor's house 这个 any woman 就是 foreign woman 就是有可能不是埃及人对不对？你有个奴隶什么那么的 and you shall put them in the and so you shall plunder 让你要洗劫那个以色列埃及人，要洗劫埃及人好，那么我们来看这里After instructing Moses and the elders on how to the promise a successful escape from Egypt, this verse concludes chapter 3 with further information regarding how the Jews would live. First, each woman will ask her neighbor for jewelry and clothing. Second, this would include any woman who lives in her house. The contrast appears between the local residents and the foreigner or visitor to the area. 你看到没有？这里解释了就说不仅包括那个埃及的妇女，还有 any woman lives in her house. The contrast appears 这个呢就对比between the local resident 就是那个当地人以及和那外面来访问的那些人Both the Egyptians and anyone else in the area would give the Israelites whatever they wanted and send them away. Both references in this verse are feminine 那么这里都提到的都是女性都是妇女提到的 indicating this was activity that took place among the Jewish women and the female Egyptians and immigrants or visitors there 都是妇女这里都是提到的都是妇女然后 these Jewish women would take the jewelry and clothing and put them on their own sons and daughters 那么这把它们放在the women who were unable to adequately clothe their children under slavery would dress their children in the finest clothing on the day they receive their freedom. In this way, they would plunder. 这个带引号的这个就是 plunder 这是实际上面这里并不是真正意义上面抢劫因为他们遭到压迫遭到那个奴役那么现在他们应该拿回他们应该属于他们自己的，所以这里的 plunder 加引号的and defeat their Egyptian oppressors 那么这里有一个就是那个就是这里呢就是他那个妇女以色列的妇女把那个东西要过来以后把它放在他们那个儿女的身上。那么我们看看这里这里是 shall ask her neighbors to remove and clothing and you shall put them 这个you不是那个妇女you shall 你们就是以色列的那个你们那么你们就是以色列人 generally speaking 那么这里呢它是好像有一点意思是那些妇女要回来以后放在他们孩子上，但这个不重要这个不重要。好，那么后面 This odd reaction is in part explained by the wonders which God's plan to do 那么这个是这个非常古怪的一个反应These plagues, while terrible, will be necessary in order to convince the Egyptian king to release Israel from slavery 那这个是那个就是这个反应这个odd reaction 就是因为这个是很怪的， 因为为什么？因为啊，他们那些埃及妇女啊，怎么会自觉自愿的就把这些东西拿出来了呢？对不对？这个是指 the odd reaction。the odd reaction 是指那个 Egyptian women 啊。Egyptian women's odd reaction 啊，in part。那么他就解释了，有什么解释啊？有这个 wonder，就是那个灾难来解释。These plagues, while terrible, will be necessary to convince Egyptian kings to. 这个人 by then, the entire nation of Egypt will recognize that keeping the Hebrews enslaved means suffering the wrath of God. So they will give anything to get Israel to leave as soon as possible. 啊，看到没有？那这个就解释了，就是他们后来就一看到这么有大灾难，你压迫啊，那他们你要什么就给你啊，那快走，啊，滚蛋滚蛋滚蛋啊，不要在这里来了我们受不了这个意思有意思，同学们啊。那么好，那么我们看看啊，22each woman shall ask her neighbor and and clothing, and you shall put them on your sons, so you shall plunder the Egyptians, and so you shall plunder。那这里 plunder 没有引号，我们那个里面有引号，实际上它这个 plunder，就是别的意思啊。那么这是上帝的一段话。好，那么我们看16到22的注解，第3章的16到22。第3章的16到22的注解。A directive to Moses about speaking to his people and Pharaoh precedes other two problems 啊。那么这个注解我们前面我们不回去看了，它这个是说明就是说有一个命令啊，指令啊，对摩西指令啊，about speaking to his people。那个关于的那个跟着说啊，他这个在 precede 在另外2个问题的前面啊。然后是16啊，16我们这里有注解 elders usually used with of Israel are representatives of the people in the community governance。这里我们讲的是长老啊 ，community representative 代表议员，以色列早期的议员啊，同学们啊，这个东西我们现在的这个社会制度啊，从圣经的那个时候就开始了。以色列那个圣经的时候就有那个 elders 啦，这个是长老啊。那么这个就是 representative， 就是人民的代表啊，对不对？那么现在就是什么议员呢？西方的议员啊。那么这个18。God of the Hebrews, which connects the God to a specific people, is used when Moses addresses non-Israelites. See, so Egyptians did give their state workers time off for religious events, so the request to make a 3 days journey is reasonable 啊。那么 God of the Hebrews 他说那个希伯来人的那个上帝啊，就把那个上帝啊。这句话就把上帝啊，跟这个专门是指跟以色列人联系起来啊，而不是埃及人，而且埃及人崇拜的是别的神啊，而不是上帝啊。所以呢，他这里是 is used when Moses。那么这个呢，就是 God of Hebrews 啊，这个话就是说，在什么时候用啊？就是在摩西啊，就是说对那些非以色列人说的时候说的话，或说这个时候，他才说。God of the Hebrews 啊，那肯定的，就是说这个是专门是指那个希伯来人的那个上帝，而不是以色列的那个而不是那个埃及人崇拜的上帝啊。然后呢是后面了 ，Egyptians did give their stake orders time of for。那么上帝啊，埃及人啊，也确实呢给予那个他们的那个干活的。国家他们在那个干活的，每天呢都给他们时间让他们去参加那个宗教仪式的啊，这个让他们去朝拜的。所以啊，这个要求啊，请求啊，要请求他们给3天时间啊，到那个去崇拜那个敬神啊，这个是 reasonable 啊，这个是说得过去的啊，说得通的啊。那么我们看这个啊。Mighty hand is an image of divine power in the ancient day 啊 ，Mighty hand is an image 形象啊，上帝的之手啊，有力的之手啊，就是一个在 晋东的时候啊，与古代晋东的时候啊，它是一个神的那个力量的一个形象一个 image 那么可能是有一些画啊，这里面都有这个上帝之手然后22是that an Israelite woman requests jewelry and clothing from the Egyptian neighbor suggests that they live peacefully together in workers' villages. Yet this transferable goods is called plunder, perhaps in reference to Genesis 那么他说那个以色列人向他的邻居要求财物金银财物衣服他说这个好像看起来他们就是相处在那个工人的那个村庄里面住的地方，他们相处还是可以的和平的但是他说这个。但是这个转换，这个物资的这个金银财宝这些衣服的转换，在圣经里面就 called plunder 这个，那么他说大概就是大概就是指那个指那个Genesis 创世纪里面15到1415章14节里面有这个类似的就只叫 plunder 那么这个我们就不考证了。这里的说 plunder 肯定是。它是直接的翻译我们这里的那个圣经把它称作 plunder， 它是一个直接的翻译，它的真正的意义并不是 plunder， 这里就并不是他们去要对不对？他们没有去抢劫他们去索要就是请求request 你们等于说还是友好的比较友好的，因为埃及人对他们已经很怕了，对不对？他们提出什么要求？都是 OK 的，对不对没什么好那个的好，那么这个呢，就是第3章呢已经全部讲完了。那么接下来呢，我们要讲 Exodus 的第4章。现在就讲到这里，谢谢大家，再见。